Faith, a very flower.
So what say you? Can you love the gentleman? This night you shall behold him at our feast. Read o'er the volume of young Paris's face, and find delight writ there with beauty's pen. So shall you share all that he doth possess by having him, making yourself no less.
No less, nay, bigger. Women grow by men.
Speak briefly. Can you like of Paris's love?
I'll look to like if liking move. But no more deep will I adert mine eye than your consent gives me strength to make it fly.
Go, girl, seek happy nights to happy days.
And so, Juliet heads off to the party where she's bound to meet the Count Paris. But in fact, she meets Romeo. And Romeo and she fall in love. And she wishes to be married. And her go-between is her nurse. And so the nurse, she's waiting for her to return with the message from Romeo.
Clock struck 9 when I did send the nurse. In half an hour she promised to return. Perchance she cannot meet him. Oh, that's not so. Oh, she is lame. Love's heralds should be thoughts, which 10 times faster glide than the sun's beams, driving back shadows over luring hills. Therefore do nimble pinioned doves draw love, and therefore hath the wind-swift Cupid wings. Now is the sun upon the highmost hill of this day's journey, and from 9 till 12 is 3 long hours, yet she is not come. Had she affections and warm youthful blood, she would be as swift in motion as a ball. My words would bandy her to my sweet love and his to me. But old folks, oh many fain as they were dead, unwieldy, slow and heavy and pale as lead. Oh, but she comes! Oh, honey nurse, what news? Hast thou met with him? Send thy man away.
Peter, stay at the gate.
Now, good sweet nurse. Oh Lord, why lookest thou sad? The news be sad, yet tell them merrily. If good, thou shamest the music with the sweet news by playing it to me with so sour a face.
Oh, I am weary. Give me leave a while. Oh, how my bones ache. What a jaunt have I had.
Thou hadst my bones, and I thy news. Nay, come, I pray thee, speak. Good nurse, speak.
Yea, Zoo, what haste? Can you not stay a while? Do you not see that I am out of breath?
How art thou out of breath? When thou hast breath to say to me, thou art out of breath. The excuse that thou dost make in this delay is longer than the tale thou dost excuse. Is the news good or bad? Answer to that. Say either, and I'll stay the circumstance. Let me be satisfied. Is it good or bad?
Well, you have made a simple choice. You know not how to choose a man. Romeo? No, not he. Though his face be better than any man's, yet his leg excels all men's. And for a hand and a foot and a body, though they be not to be talked upon, yet they are past compare. He is not the flower of courtesy, but I'll warrant him as gentle as a lamb. Go thy ways, wench, serve God. What, have you dined at home?
No, but all this I did know before. What says he of our marriage? What of that?
Oh, how my head aches. What a head have I. It beats as it would fall in 20 pieces. Oh, my back, to the side, my back. Beshrew your heart for sending me about to catch my death with jouncing up and down.
Oh, Faith, I am sorry thou art not well.
No.
Sweet nurse. Tell me, what says my love?
Your love says, like an honest gentleman and a courteous and a kind and a handsome, and I warrant a virtuous. Where is your mother?
Where is my mother? Why, she is within. Where should she be? How oddly thou repliest. Your love says, like an honest gentleman. Where is your mother?
Oh, gods, lady dear, are you so hot? Marry, come up, I trow. Is this the poultice for my aching bones? Henceforward you do your messages yourself.
Here's such a coil. Come, what says Romeo?
Have you got leave to go to shrift today?
I have.
Then hie you hence to Friar Lawrence's cell. There stays a husband to make you a wife. Now comes the wanton blood up in your cheeks. There'll be scarlet straight at any news. Hie you to the church. I must another way to fetch a ladder by the which your love must climb a bird's nest soon when it is dark. I am the drudge and toil in your delight, but you shall bear the burden soon at night. Go, I'll to dinner. Hie you to the cell.
Hie to high fortune, honest nurse. Farewell.
And so they are married. But of course, they are star-crossed lovers, she and Romeo. And Romeo kills Tybalt, her cousin. And in the midst of all this, the Capulets still insist that their daughter marry the Count Paris. And this, of course, will really challenge the relationship between Juliet and her nurse. And so we return.
Is there no pity sitting in the clouds that sees into the bottom of my grief? Oh, sweet my mother, cast me not away. Delay this marriage a month, a week, or if you do not, make the bridal bed in that dim monument where Tybalt lies.
Talk not to me, for I'll not speak a word. Do as thou wilt, for I have done with thee.
Oh God! Oh nurse, how shall this be prevented? My husband is on earth, my faith in heaven. How shall that faith return again to earth unless that husband send it me from heaven by leaving earth? Counsel me, comfort me. Alack, that heaven should practice stratagems upon so soft a subject as myself. What sayest thou? Hast thou not a word of joy? Some comfort, nurse.
Faith, here it is. Romeo is banished, and all the world to nothing, that he dare ne'er come back to challenge you, or if he do, it must be by stealth. Then, since the case so stands as now it doth, I think it best you married with the county. Oh, he's a lovely gentleman. Romeo's a dish clerk to him. An eagle, madam, hath not so green, so quick, so fair an eye as Paris hath. Beshrew my very heart, I think you are happy in this second match, for it excels your first. Or if it did not, your first is dead. Or 'twere as good he were, as living here and you no use of him.
Speakest thou from thy heart?
And from my soul too, or else beshrew them both.
Amen.
What?
Well, thou hast comforted me marvelous much. Go in, tell my lady I am gone, having displeased my mother to Lawrence's cell, to make confession and be absolved.
Marry, I will, and this is wisely done.
Ancient damnation! O most wicked fiend! Is it more sin to wish me thus forsworn, or to dispraise my lord with that same tongue which she hath praised him with above compare so many thousand times? Go, counselor. Thou, my bosom henceforth, shall be twain. Fall to the friar to know his remedy. If all else fail, myself have power to die.
And so the relationship between Juliet and her nurse has fallen apart because there is no wisdom in Juliet's nurse. She is as inconstant as they come. As Shakespeare grew as a playwright, he began to realize that there was some great depth to the underclass, whether it is to men on the battlements of Elsinore in Hamlet, or the grave diggers digging a grave. We begin with the first scene in Hamlet on the battlements, where Bernardo, played by Jerry Finley, Marcellus, played by Jerry Finley, Bernardo by John Bailey, and Horatio with Paul Barton, are looking to see what is happening with the ghost of Hamlet's father.
Hola, Bernardo.
Say, what, is Horatio there?
A piece of him.
Welcome, Horatio. Welcome. Good Marcellus.
What? Has this thing appeared again tonight?
I've seen nothing.
Horatio says 'tis but our fantasy, and will not let belief take hold of him touching this dreaded sight, twice seen of us. Therefore, I have entreated him along with us to watch the minutes of this night, that if again this apparition come, he may approve our eyes and speak to it.
Tush, tush, 'twill not appear.
Sit down a while, and let us once again assail your ears that are so fortified against our story. What we have 2 nights seen.
Well, sit we down, and let us hear Bernardo speak of this.
Last night of all, when yon same star that westward from the pole had made his course to illume that part of heaven, where now it burns, Marcellus and myself, the bell then beating 1.
Peace, break thee off. Look what it comes again.
In the same figure, like the king that's dead.
Thou art a scholar. Speak to it, Horatio.
Looks it not like the king? Mark it, Horatio.
Most like. It harrows me with fear and wonder.
It would be spoken to.
Question it, Horatio.
What art thou that usurp this time of night, together with that fair and warlike form in which the majesty of buried Denmark did sometimes march? By heaven, I charge thee, speak.
Oh, it is offended.
See, it stalks away.
Stay, speak. Speak, I charge thee, speak.
'Tis gone, and will not answer.
How now, Horatio? You tremble and look pale. Is not this something more than fantasy? What think you on it?
Before my God, I might not this believe without the sensible and true avouch of mine own eyes.
Is it not like the king?
As thou art to thyself, such was the very armor he had on when he the ambitious Norway combated. So frowned he once when in an angry parley he smote the sledded Polacks on the ice. 'Tis strange.
Thus twice before, and jump at this dead hour, with martial stalk hath he gone by our watch.
In what particular thought to work I know not, but in the growth and scope of my opinion, this bodes some strange eruption to our state.
Good now, sit down and tell me, he that knows, why this same strict and most observant watch so nightly toils the subject of the land, and why such daily cast of brazen cannon and foreign mart for implements of war? Why this impress of shipwrights whose sore task does not divide the Sunday from the week? What might be toward that this sweaty haste doth make the night joint laborer with the day? Who is't that can form me?
That can I, or at least the whisper goes so. Our last king, whose image even but now appeared to us, was, you know, by Fortinbras of Norway, thereto pricked on by a most emulate pride, dared to the combat in which our valiant Hamlet, for so this side of our known world esteemed him, did slay this Fortinbras, who by a sealed compact, well ratified by law and heraldry, did forfeit with his life all those his lands which he stood seized of to the conqueror, against the which a moti competent was gagged by our king, which hath returned to the inheritance of Fortinbras. He had been vanquished as by the same covenant and carriage of the article designed, his fell to Hamlet. Now, sir, young Fortinbras of unimproved metal and hot full hath in the skirts of Norway here and there sharked up a list of lawless resolutes for food and diet to some enterprise that hath a stomach in which is no other, and as it doth well appear unto our state, but to recover of us by strong hand, and in terms compulsory those foresaid lands, so by his father lost. And this, I take it, is the main motive of our preparations, the source of this our watch, and the chief head of this post-haste and rummage of the land.
Think it not be no other but Aaron so. Well, make it sort that this portentous figure comes armed through our watch, so like the king. That was and is the question of these wars.
A mote it is to trouble the mind's eye. In the most high and palmy state of Rome, a little ere the mightiest Julius fell, the graves stood tenantless, the sheeted dead did squeak and gibber in the Roman streets, as stars with trains of fire and dews of blood, disasters in the sun and the moist star, upon whose influence Neptune's empire stands, was sick almost to doomsday with eclipse. And even in the precursor of fierce events, as the harbingers preceding still the fates in prologue to the omen coming on, have heaven and earth together demonstrated unto our climatures and countrymen. But soft, behold, lo, where it comes again. I'll cross it, though it blast me. Stay, illusion. If thou hadst any sound or use of voice, speak to me. If there be any good thing to be done that may to thee do ease and grace to me, speak to me. If thou art privy to thy country's fate, which happily foreknowing may avoid, oh, speak. Or, if thou hast uphoarded in thy life exhorted treasure in the womb of the earth, for which they say you spirits oft walk in death, speak of it. Stay and speak. Stop it, Marcellus.
Shall I strike it with my partisan?
Do if it will not stand.
'Tis here.
'Tis here.
'Tis gone. We do it wrong, being so majestical to offer it the show of violence, for it is as the air, invulnerable, and our vain blows malicious mockery.
It was about to speak when the cock crew.
And then it started like a guilty thing upon hearing a fearful summons. I have heard the cock, that it is the trumpet of the morn, doth with his lofty and shrilling throat awake the god of day, and at his warning, whether in sea or fire, in earth or air, the extravagant and erring spirit hies to his confine, and of the truth herein, this present object made probation.
It faded on the crowing of the cock. Some say that ever, against that season wherein our Savior's birth is celebrated, the bird of dawning singeth all night long. And then they say, no spirit dares stir abroad. The nights are wholesome, then no planet strike, no fairy takes, nor witch hath power to charm. So hallowed and so gracious is the time.
So I have heard, and do in part believe it. But look, the morn, in a russet mantle clad, walks o'er the dew of yon high eastward hill. Break we our watch up by my advice. Let us impart by what we have seen tonight unto young Hamlet. For upon my life, this spirit, dumb to us, will speak to him. Do you consent we shall acquaint him with it, and in needful in our loves, fitting our duty?
Let's do it, I pray. And I this morning know where we shall find him most conveniently.
And thus begins Hamlet's journey toward his own tragedy. Throughout the course of the play, Hamlet confronts death, and he's looking for wisdom. And he finds it in a strange way at a gravesite when he returns back to Denmark with his friend Horatio. And so we begin.
Is she to be buried in Christian burial that willfully seeks her own salvation?
I tell thee she is, and therefore make her grave straight. The croner hath sat on her, and finds it Christian burial.
How can that be? Unless she drowned herself in her own defense.
Why, 'tis found so.
It must be, say, offendendo. It cannot be else, for here lies the point. If I drown myself wittingly, it argues an act, and an act has 3 branches. It is to act, to do, to perform. Our goal, she drowned herself wittingly.
Nay, nay, but hear you, good man Delver.
Give me leave. Here lies the water. Good. Here stands the man. Good. If the man go to this water and drown himself, it is, will he, nil he goes. Mark you that. But if the water come to him and drown him, he drowns not himself. Agall, he that is not guilty of his own death shortens not his own life.
But is this law?
I'm amazed. Crowner's quest law.
Well, you hath the truth on it. If this had not been a gentlewoman, she should have been buried out o' Christian burial.
Oh, aye, there thou sayest. And the more pity that great folk should have countenance in this world to drown or hang themselves more than they're even Christian. Come, my spade, there is no ancient gentleman, but gardeners, ditchers, and grave makers. They uphold Adam's profession.
But was he a gentleman?
He was the first that ever bore arms.
Why, he had none.
What? Art thou a heathen? How dost thou understand the scripture? The scripture says Adam digged. Could he dig without arms? I'll put you another question to thee. If thou answerest me not to the purpose, confess thyself.
Go to.
What is he that builds stronger than either the mason, the shipwright, or the carpenter?
Ha. The gallows makers. For that frame outlives 1,000 tenants.
I like thy wit well, Lake of Faith. The gallows does well, but how does it well? It does well to those that do in. Now, thou dost ill to say the gallows is built stronger than the church. Argal, the gallows may do well to thee. Toot, get, come.
Who builds stronger than a mason, a shipwright, or a carpenter?
Aye, tell me that, and unyoke.
Now I can tell ye.
Toot?
Master, I cannot tell.
Cudgel thy brains no more about it, for your dull ass will not mend his pace with beating. And when you are asked this question next, say, a grave maker. The houses that he makes last till doomsday. Go get thee to yon. Fetch me a stoup of liquor. In youth when he did love, me thought it was very sweet to contract all the time for all my behoove. Me thought there was nothing meet.
Has this fellow no feeling of his business that he sings at grave making?
Custom had made it in him a property of easiness.
'Tis e'en so. The hand of little employment hath the daintier sense.
But age with his stealing steps hath clawed me in his clutch, and hath shipped me until the land as if it never been much.
That skull had a tongue in it and could sing once. How the knave jowls it to the ground as if it were Cain's jawbone that did the first murder. It might be the pate of a politician which this ass now o'erreaches, one that would circumvent God, might it not?
It might, my lord.
Or of a courtier, which could say, good morrow, sweet lord, how dost thou, good lord? This might be my lord such a one that praised my lord such a one's horse when he meant to beg it, might it not?
Aye, my lord.
Why, even so. And now my lady worms, chapless, and knocked about the Nazard with a sexton's spade. Here's fine revolution, and we have the trick to see it.
Did these bones cost no more the breeding, but to play at loggets with them? Mine ache to think on it.
A pickaxe and a spade, and a shrouding sheet. Oh, a pit of clay for to be made, for such a guest is meet.
There's another. Why may not that be the skull of a lawyer? Where be his quiddities now? His quillets, his cases, his 10 years, and his tricks? Why does he suffer this rude knave to knock him about the sconce with a dirty shovel, and will not tell him of his action of battery? Is not parchment made of sheepskins?
Aye, my lord, and calfskins too.
They are sheep and calves which seek out assurance in that. I will speak to this fellow. Whose grave's this, sirrah?
Mine, sir. Oh, a pit of clay for to be made, for such a guest is meet.
I think it be thine indeed, for thou liest in it.
You lie out on, sir, and therefore it is not yours. For my part, I do not lie in, and yet it is mine.
Thou dost lie in it, to be in it and say it is thine. 'Tis for the dead, not for the quick, therefore thou liest.
'Tis a quick lie, sir, 'twill away again from me to you.
What man dost thou dig it for?
No man, sir,
What woman then?
for none, neither.
Who is to be buried in it?
One that was a woman, sir, but rest her soul, she's dead.
How absolute the knave is. We must speak by the card, or equivocation will undo us. By the Lord, Horatio, these 3 years I have taken note of it. The age is grown so picked that the toe of the peasant comes so near the heel of the courtier he gasps his kibe. How long hast thou been a grave maker?
Of all the days of the year, I came to it that day that our last King Hamlet overcame Fortinbras.
How long is that since?
Can you tell that? Every fool can tell it. It was the very day that young Hamlet was born, he that is mad and sent into England.
Aye, Mary, why was he sent into England?
Why, because he was mad. He shall recover his wits there, or if he do not, it is no great matter there.
Why?
'Twill not be seen in him there. There the men are as mad as he.
How came he mad?
Very strangely, they say.
How strangely?
Faithing with the losing of his wits.
Upon what ground?
Why, here in Denmark. I have been sexton here, man and boy, for 30 years.
How long will a man lie in the earth ere he rot?
If he be not rotten before he die, as we have many pocket corpses these days, that will scarce hold the laying in. He will last you some 8 year or 9 year. A tanner will last you 9 year.
Why he more than another?
Why, sir, his hide is so tanned with his trade that he will keep out water a great while. And your water is a sore decay of your horse and dead body. Now here, the skull. This skull hath lain in the earth 23 years.
Whose was it?
A horse and mad fellow's it was. Who do you think it was?
Nay, I know not.
a pestilence on him for a mad rogue. He poured a flagon of Rhenish on my head once. This same skull, sir, was Yorick's skull, the king's jester.
This,
In that,
let me see. Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him, Horatio. A fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He hath borne me on his back 1,000 times, and now how abhorred in my imagination it is. My gorge rises at it. Here hung those lips that I have kissed I know not how oft. Where be your jibes now? Your gambols, your songs, your flashes of merriment that were wont to set the table on a roar? Not one now, to mock your own grinning. Quite chapfallen. Now, get you to my lady's chamber and tell her, let her paint an inch thick. To this favor she must come. Make her laugh at that. Prithee, Horatio, tell me one thing.
What's that, my lord?
Thou think Alexander looked with a fashion in the earth,
Even so.
and smelt so.
Yeah, even so, my lord.
To what base uses we may return, Horatio? Why may not imagination trace the noble dust of Alexander till he find it stopping a bunghole?
For to consider too curiously, to consider so.
No, faith not a jot, but to follow him thither with modesty enough and likelihood to read it.
And so we see that there is wisdom, excuse me, to be found even in a grave digger's words. Times have changed. When King Charles is beheaded, the nobility of England leave for the continent, and there they discover the works of Moliere. Moliere changes the roles of the servant and the nobleman. In this case, unlike the nurse and Juliet in Tartuffe, Doreen, the servant, is much wiser than Marianne, the girl. Tartuffe is a charlatan. He is a liar and a thief. And he has fooled the bourgeoisie family that he's living with. And now Mr. Tartuffe wants his daughter to marry this decrepit old man. But there's the wisdom of Doreen. And so we begin our scene.
Well, have you lost your tongue, girl? Must I play your part and say the lines you ought to say? Faced with a fate so hideous and absurd, can you not utter one dissenting word?
What good would it do? A father's power is great.
Resist him now, or it will be too late.
But
Tell him one cannot love at a father's whim, that you shall marry for yourself, not him. That since it's you who are to be the bride, it's you, not he, who must be satisfied. And that if his Tartuffe is so sublime, he's free to marry him at any time.
I've bowed so long to father's strict control, I couldn't oppose him now to save my soul.
Come, come, Marianne, do listen to reason, won't you? Valere has asked your hand. Do you love him or don't you?
Oh, how unjust of you. What can you mean by asking such a question, dear Doreen? You know the depth of my affection for him. I've told you 100 times how I adore him.
I don't believe in everything I hear. Who knows if your professions were sincere?
They were, Doreen, and you do me wrong to doubt it. Heaven knows that I've been all too frank about it.
You love him then?
Oh, more than I can express.
And he, I take it, cares for you no less.
I think so.
And you both, with equal fire, burn to be married.
That is our one desire.
What of Tartuffe then? What of your father's plan?
I'll kill myself if I'm forced to wed that man.
I hadn't thought of that recourse. How splendid. Just die, and all your troubles will be ended. A fine solution. Oh, it maddens me to hear you talk in that self-pitying key.
Doreen, how harsh you are. It's most unfair. You've no sympathy for my despair.
I've none at all for people who talk drivel and faced with difficulties whine and snivel.
No doubt I'm timid, but it would be wrong.
True love requires a heart that's firm and strong.
I'm strong in my affection for Valere, but coping with my father is his affair.
But if your father's brain has grown so cracked over his dear Tartuffe that he can retract his blessing, though your wedding day was named, it's surely not Valere who's to be blamed.
If I defy my father, as you suggest, would not seem unmaidenly at best. Shall I defend my love at the expense of brazenness and disobedience? Shall I parade my heart's desires and flaunt?
No, I ask nothing of you. Clearly, you want to be Madame Tartuffe, and I feel bound not to oppose a wish so very sound. What right have I to criticize the match? Indeed, my dear, the man's a brilliant catch. Monsieur Tartuffe, now there's a man of weight. Oh, yes, yes. Monsieur Tartuffe, I'm bound to state, is quite a person. That's not to be denied. 'Twill be no little thing to be his bride. The world already rings with his renown. He's a great noble in his native town. His ears are red, he has a pink complexion, and all in all, he'll suit you to perfection.
Dear God.
Oh, how triumphant you will feel at having caught a husband so ideal.
Oh, do stop teasing and use your cleverness to get me out of this appalling mess. Advise me, and I'll do whatever you say.
Ah, no. A dutiful daughter must obey her father, even if he weds her to an ape. You've a bright future. Why struggle to escape your husband?
Oh, you turn my blood to ice. Stop torturing me and give me your advice.
Your servant, madam.
Doreen, I beg of you.
No, you deserve it. This marriage must go through.
Doreen.
No.
Not Tartuffe. You know I think him.
Tartuffe's your cup of tea, and you shall drink him.
I've always told you everything and relied.
No, you deserve to be Tartuffeified.
Well, since you mock me and refuse to care, I'll henceforth seek my solace in despair. Despair shall be my counselor and friend, and help me bring my sorrows to an end.
There now, come back. My anger has subsided. You do deserve some pity, I've decided.
Doreen, if father makes me undergo this dreadful martyrdom, I'll die, I know.
Don't fret. It won't be difficult to discover some plan of action to help you and your lover.
And so, the servant becomes the master. Unlike Juliet and her nurse, Doreen and Marianne know where wisdom lies. But what happens to the upper class? In William Congreve's The Way of the World, written in the early 1700s, we see that the bourgeoisie, the upper class, have now themselves become objects of humor. They are no longer wise. They are preoccupied with sex, love, fashion, and cheating on their husbands. So we begin.
Aye, dear Marwood. If we will be happy, we must find the means in ourselves and among ourselves. Men are ever in extremes, either doting or averse. While they are lovers, if they have fire and sense, their jealousies are insupportable. And when they cease to love, they loathe. They look upon us with horror and distaste. They meet us like the ghosts of what we were, and as from such fly from us.
True, 'tis an unhappy circumstance of life that love should ever die before us, and that the man so often should outlive the lover. But say what you will, 'tis better to be left than never to have been loved. To pass our youth in dull indifference, to refuse the sweets of life because they once must leave us, is as preposterous as to wish that we have been born old, because we one day must be old. For my part, my youth may wear and waste, but it shall never rust in my possession.
Then it seems you dissemble an aversion to mankind only in compliance to my mother's humor.
Certainly. To be free, I have no taste of those insipid, dry discourses with which our sex of force must entertain themselves apart from men. We may affect endearments to each other, profess eternal friendships, and seem to dote like lovers, but 'tis not in our natures long to persevere. Love will resume his empire in our breasts, and every heart, or soon or late, receive and readmit him as its lawful tyrant.
Bless me, how I have been deceived. Why, you profess a libertine.
You see my friendship by my freedom. Come, be as sincere. Acknowledge that your sentiments agree with mine.
Never.
You hate mankind.
Heartily, inveterately.
Your husband?
Most transcendently. Though I say it meritoriously.
Give me your hand upon it.
There.
I join with you. What I have said has been to try you.
Is it possible? Dost thou hate those vipers, men?
Oh, I have done hating 'em, and am now come to despise 'em. The next thing I have to do is eternally to forget them.
There spoke the spirit of an Amazon, a Penstalia.
I am thinking sometimes to carry my aversion further.
How?
Faith, by marrying. If I could but find one that loved me very well and would be thoroughly sensible of ill usage, I think I should do myself the violence of undergoing the ceremony.
You would not make him cuckold.
Oh, no, but I've been make him believe I did, and that's as bad.
Why not you as good as do it?
Oh, if he should ever discover it, he would then know the worst and be out of his pain. But I would have him ever to continue upon the rack of fear and jealousy.
Ingenious mischief! Would thou wert married to Mirabell?
Would I were.
You change color.
Oh, because I hate him.
So do I. But I can hear him named. But what reason have you to hate him in particular?
I never loved him. He is and always was insufferably proud.
By the reason you give for your aversion, one would think it dissembled. For you have laid a fault to his charge, of which his enemies must acquit him.
Oh, then it seems you are one of his favorable enemies.
Do I?
Methinks you look a little pale, and now you flush again.
Do I? I think I am a little sick of the sudden.
Well, what ails you?
My husband. Don't you see him? He turned short upon me unawares and has almost overtaken me.
Oh,
And that concludes our performance for tonight. I want to thank our audience, our performers, and the Garrison Players Board, and our sponsor, of course, Kennebunk Savings. And I'd like to ask all of our performers to come back and take their bows. Brenda Brooks as Juliet, Jewel Beth Davis as the nurse, Lady Capulet, Donna Goldfarb, Horatio, Paul Barton, Bernardo, John Bailey, Marcellus, Jerry Finley, the first clown, Jerry Finley again, second clown, John Bailey, Hamlet was Aaron Timms, Horatio, Paul Barton. In Tartuffe scene, Doreen was played by Tinka Finley, Marianne by Ella Orchard Bauer. In The Way of the World, our final scene, Mrs. Fainall was played by Sean McCarthy, and Mrs. Marwood was played by Donna Goldfarb. And we thank you so much. They have been terrific, and you've been a terrific audience, I'm sure. I wish I could see you. And again, if you can remember, the Very COVID Christmas will be performed on December 19th, and please consider donating to keep the theater vibrant during the pandemic by visiting us at garrisonplayers.org. And I thank you all very much and have a wonderful evening. And end recording.